Welcome back. How are you doing? Hey friends, do you like poetry? Well, when I went to school those days, I studied at a school called Trinity College, and although I did not know English, that was a very good English school where English was very important. And I hated English classes. And one of the reasons why I hated was poetry. I did not understand regular English, let alone poetry. When the teacher pronounces the order of chrysanthemums, the only thing that I thought I understood was mums. Some mum, somebody's mother. Maybe a guy called Krishanta and Krishanta's mom. In fact, I had a guy in my class, a pal, he was Krishanta. So I was like, a poetry about your mom? And I never knew what poetry was, how important poetry was, how the rhyming statements give the flavor to the language. And one of those persons I hated was Shakespeare, because even the prose of Shakespeare are poetical. I was not very fancy. I was not fancy about prose either. I hated anything academic, whether it was poetry or prose, until I joined a poetical group, not in English, but in my language, Tamil. And I became a poet. I started writing poetry. And I started writing songs with poetical inputs, these literature styles. And when I started enjoying poetry in my language, then I paused back and I thought, maybe the English poetries are also supposed to be nice. But then to date, I haven't delved into the area of English poetry. So if you ask me, how well do you know English poetry, Suresh? No, nothing. I'm not interested. It's too difficult. Leave me alone. But our God is an artist, isn't He? He is an all-rounder artist. Music, drama, dance, songs, poetry, prose, writing. Wow, He is the best artist. Then He should also be the best poet. That's why, on top of poetry that you would find here and there in the entire Bible, there are 5 books that are segregated, committed for poetry. These are called poetical books. And they are the books of Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Solomon. So now we are going to study this 3rd section of poetry. Okay, now if you look at Hebrew literature, the greatest poetry that the Jews value to date, it's not from any of these 5 books. It's from the book of Judges. Ironically, Judges, it's a historical book, right? Samuel wrote the story of Judges. Remember, we studied about Judges. Remember, I told about that woman, Deborah. After Deborah and Barak conquer the Jabinites, Deborah sings a duet with Barak, but the main singer was Deborah. A beautiful song describing God's power and how God has always been instrumental in giving victory to the Jews, and how now He has given the victory. And the beautiful poetry is found in Judges chapter 5. And that is hailed as the best Hebrew poetry to date. But we should not undermine the poetical grandeur these 5 books between Job and Song of Solomon contain. Okay, now I am going to in this series, in this study of the poetical books, I'm going to surprise you with some beautiful poetical expressions that are found in the Bible. Okay, if you didn't know about it earlier on, if it is first time, you're going to be flabbergasted. But then you will see the grandeur of God's presentation. He is the best presenter. If you like stories, there are stories there. If you like narratives, there are narratives. If you like parables, there are parables. And then if you like poetry, then there are poetries. Okay, the book of Job. Let's talk about this elongated storybook of Job, a beautiful story. And this entire book is written in a poetical form. Now, when the Bible is translated into other languages, you cannot maintain the style, the original style in which the presentation has been made. So if you read the book of Job in English, it's not poetical at all. Okay, even the book of Psalms, we know Psalms means songs, but still the English or the other language renderings are not psalmy, not poetical. You can't help it, but if you read in Hebrew, boy, it's beautiful poetry. Oh, many of you know Hebrew, and you know what I'm talking about. The Hebrew poetry is so rich, grand, and wonderful. Now, this is a true story. Now, just because this is poetry, don't think that the story is wrong. Now, poetry has to contain lies. Not black lies, but white lies. You have to lie. What are some of the examples? We sometimes say, oh, your cheek is like the pomegranate. You have seen pomegranates, right? You cut a pomegranate into 2 and keep those 2 on your cheeks. You'll look horrible. Okay, you can scare children off if you do that in twilight. It's not really true. Nobody's cheeks should be like pomegranate. But then this lie is to show a truth that your cheeks are so reddish, beautiful. And some say, the woman's eyes were like beautiful fish. Try getting 2 real small fish and keeping them, and then look at that woman. I mean, you'll think that this woman is, she's out. You lay hands and pray for healing. So poetry involves lies. Now, therefore, between the books of Job and Song of Solomon, now you got to listen to this very carefully, otherwise you'll think that I am a heretic. You will see a lot of untrue expressions, lies. Okay? But then don't think that our God is a liar. He is not. The liar is the devil, and the devil is not the author of the Bible. God is. And God is not a liar. But when you use poetry, you have to use untrue elements to show the reality of the truth. Does that make sense to you? That is why they are there. That is why theologians say that you should not deduce theology from poetry. I mean, you would all of a sudden see that, God has wings, angels have wings, and you should not literalize them. God doesn't have wings. God doesn't have eyes. God doesn't have hands, because John 4:24 says God is a spirit. Okay. Now, talking about the image and likeness, now don't say that God created us in His own image and likeness and therefore He should have an image. No, He is a spirit. If at all He has an image, it's a spiritual image. And the two Hebrew words for image and likeness, tselem and demut, they have a different meaning, and I have a whole teaching about tselem and demut, okay? If it is there on YouTube, watch it. If not, I'll post it one of these days. Don't misconstrue that everything that you read in the poetical books are literal. You got to be very careful in hermeneuticizing or interpreting the poetical books. Okay? Now, having said that, don't think that the poetical books are untrue. They are not untrue. The stories therein are not untrue. They are all true. The story of Job really happened. There was a man called Job. And Uz was an area in the northern Arabian Peninsula. Job truly existed. He was a man of God. Yes, it's all true. And he was very rich. And historically, some historical scholars say that he was a judge. Hey, you know what? Some people even say that he was the one who drew the plan for the pyramids for Khufu and his son Khofra and then Magarinas. Okay? Anyway, let's not get into those things. The story of Job was true. Now, it's in a poetical form. It's true that one day the sons of God gathered in God's presence and the devil showed up, and God asked the devil, hey, where are you coming from? And he says, I have traveled all around the world in 80 days, you know. Then God was asking, hey, did you notice somebody from up there? You know, when you were traveling, did you notice, you know, there is a guy called Job, wonderful man. And then the devil says, yeah, he's wonderful because you have blessed him with all blessings. You have given him the protection. So who wouldn't be on your side if you have given all the goodies to him? And God says, okay, you can remove all the goodies. Touch not his life, but you can remove everything. And then we see how Job loses everything. His wealth, his health, his children. He was just left with his wife. You know, I sometimes wonder, when God had given permission to the devil, God didn't say spare Job and his wife. He said spare the life of Job. But the devil spared the life of the wife also. Why? Maybe the devil knew that the life taker is the wife. Ooh. Now this is just a joke, supposed to be a joke, okay? Anyway, all you read in that book is all true, okay? These three friends of Job coming and, you know, they go back and forth discussing things, and those three fellows try to be too smart in explaining Job why what happened, and then Job's responses. And then God was really worked up and he asks Job, hey, who are these three idiots? I'm going to just show them what I'm made of. And then Job says, oh, no, Lord, sorry, you know, these guys don't know you. You know, they are so sad about my condition and everything. And then finally Job prays to God, asking forgiveness for these three friends. And then comes the devil again one of these days when the sons of God come into the presence of God. And then God says, hey, did you see my man? He's super bright even after what you did to him. So God blessed Job manyfold, multifold. So this is a beautiful book, and it's a book of inspiration. Now if you read, now here is what I want to tell you. When you read the book of Job, if you don't understand the apparent paradoxes therein, don't worry. Two reasons. Reason number one, as I already told you, poetry you don't usually understand. It takes an arduous, turmoily employment of knowledge to try to get into the mind of the poet to see what is this fellow trying to tell. Okay? Even some of those prose like Charles Dickens, Wuthering Heights, Oliver Twist, and these. Try reading those prose. They are poetical, hard to understand. You got to really get into the mind of Charles Dickens to understand that. And when you look at Shakespeare's works, you really need to get into that fellow's mind to see what he's trying to do. How much more would you struggle to get into the mind of God, the greatest poet, spelt with a capital P, to understand what he's trying to say. So because it's poetry, not everybody can understand the poetry. But these poetries are sometimes metaphorical, sometimes symbolical. So already you don't understand poetry, then you don't understand metaphors, you don't understand symbols, and then when all these are amalgamated and presented, you're like, oh, I don't understand. No worries. Understand the story. Understand the gist of what God is trying to say. Okay? Now don't try to deduce theology out of it. Don't literalize these things from the book of Job and say, and therefore this is how it is. No. Okay? But it's a real story. It's an inspiration. And God of Job is also our God. And God has always been faithful. And what I really like about the book of Job is that God is a challenger, spelled with a capital C. The devil can never challenge God, and the devil knows it. He pretends to challenge, but he never does. He causes people to challenge God. But God is a challenger. And God did not challenge the devil based on his ability, but he challenged the devil based on Job's ability to be faithful. He said, look at my man. Look at my man. The devil never initiated in talking about Job to God, but God initiated. God says, did you see my man? Wonderful guy. Super. And then he aroused the devil to be perturbed. Then the devil says, oh yeah, anybody will be okay with you if you bless them like that. Okay, remove the blessing and I'll show you he's the best I have. And Job played a wonderful game of allowing God to win. This story really inspires me. I really love it, and so does it to everybody. So enjoy the book of Job. Okay? Wonderful poetry. Let's get into the book of Psalms. How many are there? Actually, 149. Because one Psalm, Psalm 14, is repeated in Psalm 53. The fool saith in his heart that there is no God. So that God chose to put it in two places. Okay. But then numerically we have 150 Psalms. And some of those Psalms, actually 72 were written by David himself. But only 72. Many people assume that all the Psalms were penned by David. No. Only 72. Some by a guy called Lemuel, and some by Solomon, and some by a very interesting character called Asaph. Asaph was the choir leader David had appointed when Abiathar was the priest. So several people had sung. The sons of Korah, they have sung some songs. So these are songs, and the Hebrew word for psalms is tahalim. Okay, tahalim. Ta is like the. Okay, hal means praise. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hal. And the pluralization of that is im. So tahalim. So tahalim means actually praises. But the translators of the Greek Septuagint in 250 BC, they used the Greek word salmonai for tahalim, and that means songs. So therefore, in our Bible it is called Psalms, whereas it should be praises. So these are praises, very poetical, very psalmy, very lovely. And every time you see the word Selah, it means interlude, musical interlude, Selah. Okay. And in some of those psalms, it will say, what sort of a musical instrument should you use? Nechinot, it will say. And sometimes the musical note is Shechayon, it will say. Okay, these are musical notes. So don't worry if you don't understand some of those expressions. They are musical, they are supposed to, and usually you'll see this song was written by so and so to be given to the choir leader. Why? To be sung during worship in the temple. So these are all songs of praise. And hey, I told you, I'll show you some wonderful things. Do you know what the shortest psalm is? Psalm 117, just 2 verses. Do you know what the longest psalm is? 119, 176 verses. Do you know why it is so long? It was written by David. And David, wow, he was a wonderful songwriter. He uses a method which we call acrostic. You know, Hebrew has 22 letters from Aleph to Tau. And David uses Aleph to begin 8 verses. So the first 8 verses of Psalm 119 commences with the letter Aleph. And the second 8 with the letter Beit. The third 8 with the letter Gimel. The fourth 8 with the letter Dalet. And the final 8 with the letter Tau. So 22 Hebrew letters, starting 8 verses each. So 22 times 8, 176. See how beautiful it is. Many people don't know. I think some of you knew it, but if you hadn't known it, hey, enjoy Psalm 119. It's like reading 22 different psalms. Okay, Psalm 1 begins with the righteous and the unrighteous. The righteous person doesn't sit with these sinners, stand with them, walk with them. And the 150th psalm talks about the praise. You know, why should we praise God? Where should we praise God? How should we praise God? And who should we praise God? 6 verses, beautiful. So these psalms are the songs of praise, very encouraging. You know, many people like to dwell in psalms. You know, Psalm 23. Who wouldn't love Psalm 23? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Wow. And that's a Davidic psalm. And then there are predictive psalms about the Messiah. How some psalms talk about how Jesus would come and he would be crucified. He they would even cast lots on his raiments. And then beautiful psalms like Psalm 91 and Psalm 121. Wow. These are all wonderful, encouraging. You know, if you start a perilous journey, if there is some problem around, and you read Psalm 91. And right now, when I am recording this, a very big apparent pandemic is abounding, the coronavirus. And yesterday, all the Jews were asked to read Psalm 91, and most of them who could gather by the Wailing Wall gathered by the Wailing Wall, and they prayed Psalm 91. Even the devil reads Psalm 91. You know, when he tempted Jesus, he quoted from Psalm 91 saying to Jesus, jump off the cliff because the angels will prevent your feet from prodding the ground. So, even the devil likes reading in a wrong way though, Psalms. So, enjoy. Now, don't just read Psalm 23, Psalm 91, Psalm 121. Read Psalm 1 to 150. Enjoy and try to get into the mind of the psalmist, whoever it is. It could be David, it could be somebody else, and enjoy the poetry. Again, don't deduce theology out of it. Okay? Just try to see what praise you can offer to God by reading Psalm. So, friends, Job and Psalms, 2 wonderfully poetical books. Now, if you want the poetic, rhythmic feeling, read the King James Version. Okay? See you next time. Bye.